eye-opening. Have you ever noticed how often we are told that wealth is the key to happiness? From advertisements that promise joy if we buy the next big thing, to the way society measures success by cars, houses, and bank accounts, it almost feels like there's an invisible script we've all been handed. If you want peace, if you want love, then gather more. But here's the paradox. The tighter we cling to money, the more it begins to own us. Instead of being a tool, it becomes a chain. Think about it. Have you ever felt the weight of constantly checking your account, the fear of losing what you have, or the endless anxiety of not having enough? It's like carrying gold in your beak while trying to fly. On the surface, you look free, but each wing beat drags you down closer to the ground. Let me tell you a story. There was once a king whose palace overflowed with treasures. Every wall sparkled with jewels, and every meal was a feast. Yet at night, while his servants slept peacefully on straw mats, the king would pace in circles, unable to rest. He feared thieves, he feared betrayal, he even feared his own family. The very wealth he thought would protect him became the source of his deepest insecurity. Doesn't that sound strangely familiar? In our own way, many of us live like that king. Maybe not with golden crowns, but with mortgages, bills, investments, and a restless hunger for more. The Buddha taught that wealth itself is not evil. It's neutral, like fire. Fire can warm your home or burn it down. It all depends on how you hold it. If you grasp money with fear, attachment, and greed, it burns. But if you use it as a tool, for generosity, for living simply, for supporting what matters, it becomes warmth, light, and life. So the real question is not how much do I have, but how lightly can I hold it? Imagine your hand holding water. If you try to squeeze tightly, the water slips away. But if you cup your palm gently, the water stays. That's the art of wealth, not clenching, but carrying with ease. And here's something powerful to reflect on. When you leave this world, not a single coin, not a single house, not a single stock portfolio follows you. What travels with you are the seeds you planted, acts of kindness, the love you shared, the peace you cultivated inside. Isn't it strange that we spend so much of life investing in what we cannot take, while neglecting the treasures that never leave us? This video is an invitation to shift your perspective. Over the next 10 insights, we'll explore what true wealth really means, and how letting go, yes, letting go, can actually lead us closer to freedom than clinging ever could. So I ask you, what if happiness was never in the next paycheck, the next car, or the next promotion? What if real freedom is found in learning how to release, rather than how to grasp? Stay with me, because once we see wealth through the eyes of wisdom, the chains begin to fall away, and what's left is a kind of richness that no market crash, no thief, no loss can ever take. Part 1. Wealth is only a passing cloud. Have you ever watched the sky after a summer storm? The clouds gather, heavy with rain, and then, almost without notice, they drift apart. What seemed so solid, so permanent, dissolves into blue. Wealth is a lot like those clouds. It appears to be ours, fixed, dependable, but in truth, it gathers, it scatters, and eventually, it disappears. Think about this. How many people have spent their entire lives chasing after money, only to leave it all behind when they die? A house full of possessions, a bank account full of numbers, and yet, their hands at the end are as empty as the day they were born. I remember visiting an old neighbor's estate sale years ago. He had been a successful businessman, and his home was filled with treasures collected from all over the world. Rare paintings, expensive watches, antique furniture. But when he passed away, strangers like me walked through his home, putting price tags on a life he had spent decades building. The question haunted me. If it all ends up on a folding table in someone's garage, what was it really worth? Buddhist teachings remind us, wealth is not truly ours. We may borrow it for a while, just as clouds borrow form before drifting away, but we cannot hold on forever. The Buddha once said, wealth is like a shadow. It follows for a time, but it cannot be grasped. And isn't that what we see every day? The stock market rises and falls. A fortune built in a lifetime can be lost in a single financial crash. Even the most stable jobs can disappear overnight. Money is never as solid as we believe it to be. Now, this doesn't mean wealth is meaningless. Money can provide comfort, opportunity, even safety. But it is not permanent, and it is not the source of lasting happiness. What good is a large house if the heart inside is restless? What joy is there in a luxury car if the driver is weighed down with stress and loneliness? True wealth is not measured by the zeros in your account, but by the peace and clarity in your mind. I want you to pause and ask yourself, if your wealth is like a passing cloud, then what is the sky it drifts across? What remains when the cloud is gone? The answer is simple but profound. Your mind, your heart, your inner peace. These are the treasures that do not dissolve. These are the riches you carry beyond this life. So maybe the question is not how do I make sure I never lose my wealth, but instead, what can I invest in that will last? Acts of kindness, compassion, mindfulness, these cannot be taken away. They are not subject to inflation, market crashes, or theft. They live in you, and they ripple outward long after you're gone. The clouds in the sky remind us of impermanence. They invite us to see money for what it truly is. Useful, yes, but fleeting. And once you understand that, something shifts. You no longer clutch at it with desperation. You begin to hold it lightly, to use it wisely, and to let it go when it's time. Because in the end, as the Buddha taught, only a calm and pure mind is enduring wealth. And that is a treasure no storm can wash away. Part 2. Rich but unable to let go is still poverty. Have you ever noticed that wealth doesn't always bring peace? You can walk into the house of someone who has everything, every gadget, every luxury, a fridge that's always full, and yet the air feels heavy, tense. They eat, but the food doesn't taste good. They lie down, but their sleep is restless. On the surface, they are rich, but inside, there is a poverty that no amount of money can cover. There's an old story about a king whose palace was filled with gold. Every room glittered with treasures, every chest overflowed with coins. But at night, the king couldn't close his eyes. He feared thieves. He feared rebellion. He even feared his own children, thinking they might betray him for the throne. So while his subjects slept peacefully on straw mats under the stars, the king paced the halls of his golden palace, a prisoner of his own wealth. Isn't that a striking image? Surrounded by riches, yet trapped in fear. And here's the question for us. Aren't many of us living like that king, in our own ways? Maybe we don't have piles of gold, but we have bank accounts, savings, investments, and a constant fear of losing them. We cling so tightly to what we have that we forget how to truly live. Think about the nights you've lost sleep over bills, over a falling stock, or over the thought of not having enough. In those moments, does your wealth feel like freedom, or like a chain? Buddhist wisdom turns our idea of wealth upside down. The Buddha said, riches without peace of mind is poverty. Knowing contentment is true wealth. Let that sink in for a moment. If your riches do not bring ease, if your possessions demand more of you than they give, then are you really wealthy, or just burdened by glittering chains? I've seen people who had very little, yet radiated joy. A friend of mine once visited a small farming village where families lived in simple wooden homes. Their meals were plain, mostly rice and vegetables, but when they gathered, laughter filled the air. Children ran barefoot through the fields, their faces bright with freedom. My friend came back saying, they didn't have much, but they seemed far wealthier than many millionaires I know. So maybe wealth is not about how much you have, but how free you feel in what you have. A full granary means nothing if your stomach is tied in knots with anxiety. A big house means little if it feels more like a vault than a home. Here's a thought experiment. Imagine you suddenly doubled everything you own. Twice the money, twice the property, twice the possessions. Would you finally feel secure? Or would your worries also double, about losing it, protecting it, managing it? If wealth only multiplies your fear, then it's not really wealth, it's just a bigger prison. The practice, then, is learning to let go on the inside. Not necessarily by giving away all your possessions, but by loosening the grip in your heart. By remembering that money is a tool, not a lifeline. By realizing that enough is not a number in your account, but a state of mind. True wealth begins when the fear of loss no longer controls you. When you can eat simply and taste joy. When you can sleep without counting what might be taken tomorrow. That's the richness the Buddha pointed to. Because in the end, you are not truly rich if you cannot rest in peace with what you have. But the moment you know contentment, no matter how little is in your pocket, you are wealthier than kings. Part 3. Attachment is the root of suffering. Have you ever tried to hold a burning coal in your hand? The tighter you squeeze, the more it burns you. The coal itself isn't the problem, it's the grip. That's what attachment is like. We hold on so tightly to things, to people, to money, to our own expectations, and then wonder why we are in pain. There's a story I once heard about two brothers who inherited land and wealth from the father. Instead of sharing peacefully, they spent years fighting in court, arguing over boundaries, possessions, and who deserved more. Their wealth grew, but so did their bitterness. By the time one of them passed away, neither brother spoke to the other, and their children carried the resentment forward. All that land, all that gold, and what remained? Not joy, not connection, but a legacy of anger. It's tempting to blame money itself. But let's be honest, money, by nature, is neutral. It doesn't laugh, it doesn't fight, it doesn't betray. The suffering comes from the way we cling to it, as if it could guarantee us permanence, safety, or identity. The Buddha taught, it is not money that causes suffering, but the attachment to it. And this teaching doesn't only apply to wealth. It touches every corner of our lives. Think about relationships. How many times have we confused love with possession? We say, you are mine, and cling so tightly that the relationship suffocates. Or think about our careers. We hold so tightly to our titles, our status, that even small failures feel like the end of the world. Have you ever noticed how exhausting it is to live like that, to constantly grip, to constantly fear losing what you've clutched so hard? Here's another way to see it. Attachment is like carrying a heavy backpack everywhere you go. At first, you might not notice the weight, but over time, your shoulders ache, your steps slow, and your energy fades. Life itself becomes harder, not because of what you carry, but because you refuse to set it down. What's the alternative? It's not about renouncing everything and living in a cave. It's about loosening the grip. Imagine holding something gently in your hand instead of clutching it. You can still use it, appreciate it, even cherish it, but you're not owned by it. If it leaves, you don't break. If it stays, you're grateful. That's the freedom the Buddha pointed to. And maybe you've experienced glimpses of this already. Have you ever cleaned out your closet, given away clothes or items you no longer use, and felt strangely lighter? Or maybe you forgave someone after holding resentment for years, and suddenly your chest felt open, your breath easier. That's what it feels like to release attachment. You don't lose, you actually gain space, energy, and peace. So let me ask you, what are you gripping so tightly right now that it's burning you? Is it the fear of losing money? The desire to control someone you love? The need to be right, to win, to never let go? And what might happen if, just for a moment, you loosened your hold? The Buddha's wisdom is simple but life-changing. It's not the object itself that harms us, but the grasping. When we learn to hold life gently, suffering begins to dissolve. Like a burning coal dropped from a hand, the pain begins to fade the moment we let it go. Because in the end, freedom isn't about having nothing. It's about clinging to nothing. And that is where true happiness begins. Part 4. Sharing is the real treasure. Have you ever noticed how a flame, when used to light another candle, doesn't lose any of its brightness? In fact, the light grows warmer, brighter, and fills the whole room. That's the mystery of generosity. It never diminishes what we have. It multiplies it. There's an old story of a man who had almost nothing. He was poor, with only a single bowl of rice to eat for the day. But when he saw someone hungrier than himself, he gave away half of it. To outsiders, that might look like a foolish decision. How could a man who already had so little afford to give? But what he discovered was this. Though his stomach was still half empty, his heart became full. That simple act of sharing carried him through life with a joy that wealth alone could never provide. Now let's pause for a second and ask ourselves, how often do we cling so tightly to what we have, our money, our possessions, our time, because we fear there won't be enough left for us? It's a natural instinct. But here's the paradox. The more we grip, the more our lives shrink. The more we share, the more abundant our lives feel. Think about it. Have you ever given someone a small gift, maybe a meal, a ride, or even just your time, and then noticed how that moment stayed with you far longer than any purchase you made for yourself? The happiness of the person receiving it reflected back onto you, creating a cycle of joy. That is the real wealth, one that can't be stolen, taxed, or lost in a stock market crash. The Buddha once taught, generosity is the only wealth that follows you beyond this life. Every dollar we spend, every luxury we enjoy, it all eventually fades. But the kindness we give to others leaves a mark that stretches far beyond our own timeline. It changes the people we help, and it changes us. Modern society often tells us the opposite, to accumulate, to store, to secure. But imagine if even a small fraction of what we earn was redirected into lifting someone else's burden. Not only would the world around us become lighter, but so would our own hearts. Wealth kept in a box gathers dust. Wealth shared creates living memories. And sharing isn't just about money. Sometimes, the most valuable treasures we can give are things we don't even notice. Our presence, our encouragement, our forgiveness. A listening ear to someone who feels invisible can mean more than gold. A kind word spoken at the right time can heal more than medicine. So here's a question I want to leave you with. When you look back at your life one day, do you think the moments that will shine the brightest are the ones when you held on, or the ones when you let go and gave? Because like the flame that spreads without losing its fire, your light only grows when it is shared. Part 5. True wealth is inner peace. Have you ever met someone who owned almost nothing, yet radiated a kind of freedom and joy that money could never buy? Imagine a person sitting quietly under the shade of a tree, eating nothing more than a simple bowl of vegetables, and yet their eyes shine with a brilliance that makes you wonder, what do they have that I don't? There is an old story of a Zen master who lived with almost nothing, just a patched robe and a wooden bowl. From the outside, you might think he was poor. No house, no gold, no fine meals. But people from every walk of life, including the rich and powerful, traveled miles just to sit in his presence. Why? Because they could feel the rare treasure he carried, an unshakable peace. These wealthy visitors, despite having mansions and riches, admitted they felt restless and incomplete. They came not to give him money, but to learn the art of happiness. So here's the question for us. What is real wealth? Is it the numbers in our bank account, or is it the state of our heart? In today's world, we are constantly told that wealth equals freedom. The bigger the paycheck, the better the car, the more luxurious the vacations, the happier we'll be. And yet, we see countless examples of people who have it all but still feel empty inside. Anxiety, loneliness, and dissatisfaction often linger, no matter how high the salary climbs. On the other hand, we sometimes meet someone with so little, yet they laugh freely, sleep peacefully, and greet each day with gratitude. The Buddha taught, the true treasure lies in a heart at peace, not in vaults of gold. Think about that. Gold can be stolen. Houses can burn. Markets can crash. But the wealth of inner freedom, once discovered, can never be taken away. Let me share a thought. Imagine two people. One sleeps in silk sheets but wrestles with anxiety every night. The other rests on a simple mat but closes their eyes in deep contentment. Who, then, is truly rich? Inner wealth doesn't mean rejecting money or living without comfort. It means not being enslaved by it. It means understanding that material possessions are tools, not the source of our worth. When our happiness depends only on what we own, it's fragile. But when it grows from a calm and grounded heart, it becomes unshakable. I've noticed something in my own life. When I take time to sit quietly, to breathe, to let go of endless comparisons, I feel a richness that no purchase has ever given me. Maybe you've felt this too. Those moments when life feels complete even in its simplicity. That is the inner treasure shining through. So, let me ask you, if someone stripped away your possessions, what wealth would remain? Would you still feel whole? Or would your sense of value collapse with the loss? True wealth is not measured by what we keep locked away, but by the peace we carry within. The Zen master with his patched robe had more to give the world than any millionaire, because he had found the one treasure that never fades. And so, the invitation is this. Build your fortune, yes, but don't forget the deeper account, the one inside your own heart. Because when that account is full, you'll never feel poor, no matter what's in your wallet. Part 6. Money is a double-edged sword. Think about a sharp knife. In the hands of a cook, it prepares nourishing meals. In the hands of someone careless, it causes injury. Money is exactly like that, neutral, powerful, and dangerous depending on how it's used. There's an old story of two men in the same village. One used his wealth to build schools, provide food for the hungry, and support those in need. When he walked through town, people bowed with respect, not because of his money itself, but because of the goodness he cultivated through it. The other man, blinded by greed, hoarded every coin, cheated even his own relatives, and in the end, his family tore itself apart in bitter disputes. The same resource, money, created two completely different legacies. This raises an important question. What role does money play in your own life? Is it a tool for service and freedom, or has it become a chain around your neck? The Buddha taught, nothing is inherently good or bad. It is the mind that makes it so. Money by itself is just paper, numbers, or shiny metal, but our relationship with it can either bring peace or destruction. When we see money as a servant, it empowers us. When we allow it to become our master, it enslaves us. Modern life makes this truth even more visible. We've all heard of billionaires who donate vast sums to fight disease or create opportunities for others. Their wealth becomes a blessing that extends far beyond their own lives. At the same time, we've also seen families torn apart by inheritance battles, friendships destroyed over unpaid debts, and communities corrupted by greed. The same dollar bill can heal or harm, uplift or divide. Here's a thought experiment. Imagine you suddenly received $1 million today. What would you do first? Some might invest, some might buy comfort, some might give to charity. The point isn't the money itself, it's that the money will magnify whatever values already live in your heart. If your heart is rooted in compassion, wealth expands your ability to give. If it's rooted in greed, wealth expands your hunger for more. Personally, I've noticed how money tests character. Even in small amounts, it reveals us. Think of the times we've argued over a minor expense, or felt envy when someone else earns more. If such little sums can stir so much turmoil, how much more dangerous is unchecked wealth without wisdom? That's why mindfulness around money is essential. Ask yourself, does my spending align with my values? Do I use money in ways that create harmony, or do I let it drive me into stress and conflict? These reflections turn money from a blind force into a conscious tool. So the teaching is clear. Money is neither saint nor villain. It's a mirror. It reflects back the state of our heart. When guided by wisdom, it becomes a tool for generosity, security, and freedom. When fueled by greed and fear, it sharpens into a blade that wounds us and those around us. The choice is always ours. Will you let money serve you, or will you serve money? Part 7. Only when we let go, we truly possess. Have you ever tried to hold water tightly in your hand? The harder you squeeze, the faster it slips away. Life, wealth, and even relationships can be just like that. The paradox is clear. The more desperately we cling, the less we actually keep. There's a story of a merchant who once lived in a small village. He was known for his sharp mind and tireless effort. Over the years, he gathered more gold than anyone else in town. But the more he had, the more restless he became, always guarding, always fearing, always suspecting those around him. One day, he made a choice. He realized his wealth had become a prison. So, he began living simply, sharing generously, and letting go of his obsession with more. Surprisingly, what he lost in gold, he gained in something far greater: peace, respect, and love. People no longer saw him as just a man of money. They saw him as a man of wisdom. This is the strange truth. Letting go does not mean losing. It often means gaining what cannot be stolen. Think about it. What would you rather carry in your heart? Anxiety over losing possessions, or the freedom of knowing you already have enough? The Buddha said, letting go is not losing, but opening the door to true joy. When we loosen our grip, we stop being slaves to what we own. Instead, we become masters of our own hearts. Now, let's reflect together. How often do we exhaust ourselves chasing something, only to feel empty when we finally get it? That promotion, that car, that new house, it shines for a moment, then fades. But when we release the hunger for more, we discover a deeper wealth. Suddenly, a simple meal tastes richer. A quiet evening feels like abundance. A genuine smile becomes priceless. I've noticed this in my own life too. The times I've tried to cling tightly, to achievements, to money, even to people, I ended up anxious, always afraid of losing. But the times I dared to let go, something unexpected happened. Space opened up. And in that space, peace, creativity, and deeper connections found their way in. It's like cleaning out a cluttered room. At first, it feels like you're giving things away, like you're losing. But soon, you realize the emptiness you created isn't a void. It's freedom. It's breathing room. It's clarity. So here's the question worth carrying with you. What are you holding too tightly right now? Is it money? Status? Control? Or maybe even the fear of not having enough? Imagine what could flow into your life if you simply loosened your grip. The teaching is simple yet profound. True possession is not in clinging, but in releasing. What you hold too tightly will eventually hurt you. What you release with wisdom will return as peace, love, and joy. Remember, when you let go, you don't walk away empty-handed. You walk away with hands open, ready to receive what truly matters. Part 8. The true measure of wealth is happiness. Imagine stepping into a mansion with tall ceilings, polished floors, and rooms filled with luxury, but the air is heavy with silence, or worse, the sound of constant arguments. Now picture a small hut, barely enough space for a family of 5, but it echoes with laughter, shared meals, and warm embraces. Which one, honestly, feels richer to you? There's an old tale of 2 neighbors. One was a wealthy merchant with endless possessions, yet his nights were long and lonely. His children seldom visited, his wife had grown distant, and his heart felt like a locked vault, full of gold but empty of joy. Next door lived a family of farmers. They barely had enough rice to last through the week, yet their evenings were alive with stories, songs, and the simple joy of togetherness. Visitors left their hut feeling lighter, as though they'd stepped into the presence of something far more precious than money. This contrast asks us a difficult but essential question. How do you measure wealth in your own life? Is it your bank balance, or is it the peace you feel when you wake in the morning? Is it the car you drive, or the love in your relationships? The Buddha once said, "Happiness is the wealth that cannot be purchased by gold or silver." And isn't that the truth we all sense deep inside? Money can buy a comfortable bed, but not restful sleep. It can buy fine food, but not the taste of joy when you share a meal with someone you love. I've seen this in my own life and in the lives of others. Some of the happiest people I've met were not those with the biggest paychecks, but those who carried a lightness in their heart. They laughed easily, they forgave quickly, and they found joy in the smallest things, a morning breeze, a child's smile, or even the silence of watching the sunset. On the other hand, I've also met people who had every outward mark of success but lived in constant anxiety, always chasing the next milestone, the next purchase, the next dollar. Their eyes were tired, their conversations shallow, their hearts restless. The more they gained, the emptier they felt. Happiness, then, is not a byproduct of wealth. It's the very definition of it. A poor man with peace in his heart is far wealthier than a billionaire consumed by fear of loss. So here's a question worth reflecting on. If today your material possessions were stripped away, what inner treasures would you still have? Would you still have gratitude, laughter, kindness, or love? Because those, my friend, are the riches no one can steal. True wealth is measured not by what sits in our pockets, but by what resides in our hearts. And when we nurture joy, compassion, and gratitude, we discover a fortune that can never fade. At the end of the day, it's not the size of the house that matters, it's the warmth inside it. It's not the weight of the gold you carry, it's the lightness of the smile you share. So, may you remember, wealth is not about having more, but about being more present, more loving, more joyful. That is the kind of treasure worth keeping. Part 9. Worldly wealth cannot follow us beyond this life. When a person takes their final breath, not even the clothes they wear can go with them, let alone their gold, their mansions, or their bank accounts. This is one of those truths we all know, yet often live as if we've forgotten. History is filled with kings, queens, and tycoons who once commanded empires, fortunes, and armies. But when death arrived, they left with empty hands, just like the poorest beggar. What they left behind often became the source of bitter disputes among the living. Siblings fighting over inheritance, families breaking apart, friends turning into rivals. The wealth they clung to during life could not protect them from death, and in the end, it only fueled conflict once they were gone. The Buddha reminded us, what follows us is not our possessions, but our karma and our merit. The actions we take, the kindness we show, the compassion we cultivate, these are the true treasures that remain with us beyond the grave. Think about it. If you were told you had only 1 year left to live, would your first instinct be to accumulate more possessions? Or would you spend that time nurturing relationships, healing old wounds, serving others, and seeking peace? When we face the reality of impermanence, our priorities shift. Suddenly, the chase for more money or more things feels small compared to the desire to live meaningfully. I've personally witnessed how fleeting material wealth can be. Funerals have a way of reminding us. I've seen people buried with rings, with watches, even with checks slipped into their pockets, as if those objects could travel with them. But we all know the truth. They remain in the earth, untouched, while what truly continues is the memory of how that person lived, how they treated others, and the legacy of their deeds. This is why mindfulness about our relationship with money is so vital. It's not that wealth is evil, it's that mistaking it for permanence blinds us. Money can ease life, provide opportunities, and create comfort, but it can never buy us freedom from death, nor guarantee us peace in the next life. So here's a question to carry with you. What are you investing in that truly lasts? Are you pouring all your energy into possessions that will one day slip through your fingers? Or are you building inner wealth, compassion, wisdom, generosity, that no death can erase? The teaching is simple yet profound. Wealth belongs to this world. It rises and falls like the tide. What belongs to us eternally are the seeds of our actions, the love we share, the goodness we spread. When the final moment comes, those are the only treasures that walk with us into the unknown. So let's live in a way that when we leave this world, we don't just leave behind houses and accounts for others to argue over. Let's leave behind a fragrance of kindness, a trail of joy, and a legacy of compassion. That is the wealth worth carrying into eternity. Part 10. True wealth is freedom. Have you ever seen a bird trapped inside a golden cage? From the outside, it looks like luxury. The cage shines, it sparkles, it seems valuable. But if you look closer, the bird inside is restless. Its wings itch for the sky, its heart longs for the wind. That's when we realize, no matter how beautiful the cage, it is still a prison. This is what wealth can become when we let it bind us. We may have all the comforts the world can offer, the big house, the expensive car, the full bank account. And yet, if we are trapped by constant fear of losing it, if we are chained by endless desire for more, then we are not free. We are like that bird in the golden cage. History tells us countless stories of kings, emperors, and billionaires who had everything, yet chose a different path. Some left their thrones, walked away from palaces, and sought solitude in the mountains. Why would anyone abandon such grandeur? Because deep inside, they realized something. True wealth does not come from possessions but from freedom. Freedom to live simply, freedom to breathe without anxiety, freedom to love without conditions. Let me ask you, what is the point of owning the world if your mind is never at rest? What good is a mansion if you cannot sleep peacefully at night? Isn't it more precious to have a heart unburdened, a mind uncluttered, and a soul unchained? I remember a simple story of a monk. He once visited a rich merchant's home. The merchant proudly showed him his treasures, gold, jewels, rare paintings. After the tour, the monk smiled and said, "You own many things, but tell me, do you control them, or do they control you?" That question lingered like thunder in the silence. Because the truth is, possessions can quickly turn into prisons if we don't know how to hold them lightly. The Buddha taught, the greatest wealth is freedom from greed, hatred, and delusion. Think about that for a moment. Freedom from greed, meaning we are not enslaved by craving. Freedom from hatred, meaning no one has the power to poison our heart. Freedom from delusion, meaning we see clearly what truly matters in this fleeting life. And isn't that the kind of freedom we are all secretly longing for? To wake up in the morning without fear, to walk through life without envy, to sit with loved ones and truly be present. That is wealth beyond measure. So perhaps the question is not how much money we make, but how free we are in our own heart. Maybe the real richness is not in what we own, but in how lightly we can walk through this world, unchained by attachment. Because in the end, the bird was never meant to decorate a cage, no matter how golden. It was meant to fly. And so are we. Conclusion. My friends, let's pause for a moment and reflect. Money itself is not the enemy. Gold, houses, or bank accounts are not inherently bad. They are tools, nothing more, nothing less. The real danger lies in the way our hearts cling to them. When attachment takes over, when fear of loss becomes constant, when desire never ends, then wealth turns into chains that quietly bind our spirit. Think about it. You can hold a stone in your hand, and it's light. But if you refuse to let it go and carry it with you every step of your life, over time, even a small stone feels unbearably heavy. Money works the same way. It can help, it can support, but if you clutch it too tightly, it drains the joy out of living. I want to share a thought that has always stayed with me. True wealth is not about how much we can accumulate, but about how much freedom and peace we can experience while living. You might know people who have little, yet they laugh with their children, share meals with neighbors, and sleep soundly each night. And you might also know people who have everything money can buy, yet their eyes are restless, their hearts suspicious, and their nights sleepless. Who is richer in that case? The Buddha reminded us with profound clarity, the richest person is the one who is content. To be content does not mean to stop working, to stop dreaming, or to give up ambition. It simply means we no longer let possessions define our worth. We can enjoy them, we can use them to bring comfort and even to help others, but inside, we remain free. So the real invitation here is not to reject wealth, but to transform our relationship with it. Use it as a means, not an identity. Let it flow like water, nourishing where it passes, never stagnant, never hoarded. A person who can earn with integrity, give with generosity, and rest without attachment is truly wealthy beyond measure. And here is the paradox that life always teaches us. The more lightly you hold things, the more joy you receive from them. The more you share, the more abundant your heart feels. The less you cling, the freer your spirit becomes. In that freedom lies the ultimate treasure, peace, ease, and the deep happiness of knowing nothing can truly bind you. So I leave you with this reminder: money is not evil, but attachment is the subtle chain that robs us of peace. The wisest way to live is not to reject wealth, but to hold it with an open hand, to use it in ways that plant seeds of happiness, while keeping your heart uncluttered and free. The greatest treasure is not locked in a vault, not printed on paper, not stored in numbers on a screen. The greatest treasure is inner peace, and the key that unlocks it is simple, though not always easy: letting go. My friends, may you discover that wealth. May you live in freedom. And may you realize that the richest life is not the one filled with possessions, but the one overflowing with peace.